Hello! Welcome to The Healing Artist. I'm your host, Freda, and friends, we are going to have a little bit of a check-in episode today because as one of our listeners reached out to a friend of mine and said, hey, what happened with XYZ? So there's a lot of things that have gone on that I've talked about and didn't get a follow-up through, so we're going to do a bit of a check-in today. We're also going to do this check-in through the lens of using that detective framework that I was talking about in the past, because I have been exploring that just in my own life and really enjoying it. So if you're new here, my name is Freda. I am a semi-trance voice channel, energy healer. I am a lady who talks to trees and basically just had a lifetime of not really wanting to be here. I had a major spiritual awakening in 2019, and that set me on a road to inner healing that led me to my spiritual gifts coming online. I talk to nature, I can talk to folks' higher selves, I see the best versions of humans, and I love teaching other people how to do this work for themselves so they can clear their channel and open up their own spiritual gifts. I do not entirely know where my road is going to go. However, I am super here for it and just really enjoying the ride. So living in the moment. And that's where we'll start today, I think, with our bit of a check-in episode, present moment awareness. So living one's life from present moment awareness, and that's when we're not going to the past, we're not going to the future, we are just staying right now in the now. Something that was made famous and came to my attention originally through Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, which is, in my personal opinion, a really fantastic read. It is one of my favorite books, and it's really this excellent signpost of how to get yourself staying in the moment and addressing what's actually in front of you. And man, oh man, that is a teaching and lesson that I have been deeply working with the last several years. It has now come to the point where that basically is my just lived experience, is present moment awareness. And here's something really interesting that happens when you aren't forming necessarily new memories. It is really hard to remember what is happening or what has happened. So when you are just in the now, when you're here in the present, everything is focused on exactly what you're doing in front of your face, totally engaged, embodied, and just in it, our mind isn't working the same way in like how we remember. And I have noticed that I just have days go by. It's the morning and it's the end of the day, and I have done a whole bunch of things in between. And it's more about just living in my body, checking in with my vehicle and being present and just doing the next aligned action step after the next aligned action step, checking in along the way and just doing the things. And there isn't a whole lot of interest, excitement, or drama around it. And by the end of the day, when I'm going to bed, I'm laying in bed, I return everyone else's energy to themselves with love. I'm saying my evening prayer and gonna fall asleep, and I think back on my day, and I don't really have a whole lot to conjure back into my memory. So that's something interesting I would share. And it's just coming up, so we're starting there. What would a good detective say about that? They would just notice it. They would notice that when you're not attaching memory and what you're up to in the moment to the things around and like using your past to inform what you're literally doing in front of you, it isn't necessarily creating new pathways in your brain the same way. You're just in existence, you're just doing. And just sharing, I'm living that experience. And it's pretty wild. Okay, let's do a check-in about Reese, the dog. In the past, I had an episode about, are we worthy? Am I worthy? How do we know we're worthy of something? And something I've really wanted to do is to own a dog. And I put a lot of limitations on my thoughts around owning a dog. I thought I had to have $1 million in the bank because I think that dogs are incredibly expensive, because that's my experience of people around me that have had dogs. And I think there's a lot of luxury of time that needs to come into play when you have a dog. And yeah, am I worthy? Am I up for the challenge of having a dog? Because I really know that I would go all in with them in a way where we were taking, many mile walks in the woods and all of that every day. And when I think about my ideal life, really the trajectory, the point, what is the end game, that kind of thing, I really envision myself walking in the woods with a dog. Like, that seems like the goal. And there's a level of how that is truly rich to be walking in the woods with a dog, because it's a wealth of many things. It's a wealth of time. It's a wealth of financial resources, because a dog, there's a certain number that needs to be acquired before you get the pet in the first place to be able to make sure that, they're cared and have everything that they need. And, there's a wealth of time to have the ability to go walk in the woods. There is a wealth of spaciousness in one's life to be able to train a dog. There's a lot of things that includes to me personally. Now, a lot of Americans would not agree with me, I'm sure. They just go out and get pets and don't think about it as hard as I am. But I'm like, that's a life. It's a life. And if I'm going to tie myself to an animal in that way, I want to give them everything. I want to give them the best possible experience, and I want to be really ready to do that and not become resentful and get in over my head. Like, I want it to be the thing that I'm up to for, 10 plus years, right? So I had found this dog when I was house sitting for my sister in Sacramento. I had taken it to the shelter because it was uncollared, and I was taking it in to see if it had a microchip. I fell in love with the dog. Because of their microchip, we found out their name was Reese. And it takes 10 days when a dog is microchipped to see if their owner is going to come pick them up from the shelter. I had my eye on Reese. And Corey and I were going to go see, my husband and I were going to go up to Sacramento and see and meet the dog, because I was really thinking about adopting them. I made a lot of pros and cons lists and all sorts of stuff. Now, why am I in the bedroom right now? Because we're having a podcast studio built, a podcast studio, storage, and a loft bed in my studio space in my office. And a main thing for me was I do not want to bring a big dog into a situation with a house that's under construction. So that was always on the table, that we were going to wait for the construction to be done. Well, the construction is ongoing. And it's 2 months from when we originally had the dog encounter. Anyway, so my husband and I did go up to visit Reese. And I had made this really strong heart connection to the dog. However, when we went up to meet them in the shelter, they did not remember me in a way that felt like they were remembering. We had a perfectly lovely time. We spent several hours with Reese. And my husband also didn't just instantaneously fall in love with the dog. And when they first came out, they actually ran up to me and they jumped on my chest, and they're 64 pounds. They actually knocked me back into the wall, where I smacked my head against the wall and sort of slid down the wall. Totally fine, all totally fine. But it was one of those things where I was like, oh man, this is a big dog, It was really going to training, going to school with them. I mean, and it's going to school with them. It's more about am I ready to be trained? Because really the dog is so smart, and it's really about me retraining my habits to be able to be the alpha and teach the dog, and then I need to stick to what the dog school would teach me. Really, it's really about the people, in terms of behavior and stuff. So yeah, I mean, listen, so many pros and cons lists later. I'm like, you know what? I don't actually think I'm ready for this experience. And if I'm completely and totally honest, Reese is probably a little bit bigger than would be the best choice for us right now. And like I said, we're still under construction. So I made a choice to disconnect my heart from the dog. And we are on Reese's file. If there's ever a situation where he doesn't get adopted and it came down to a different, like a euthanization situation, then we go get him. Like Corey and I immediately agreed that that would be the case. However, that is not where we're at right now. And as far as I know, he might already be adopted. I have not been checking because I made a choice to not look at that because I disconnected and let it go and didn't choose it. There are things in our life that I genuinely believe when some things are meant for us and those things are not going to pass us by. And if that was a situation that was like absolutely meant for us, then Reese would come into our lives somehow. It would happen. But it very much felt like a choice. We could choose it. And I thought extremely long and hard about this and ran through so many lists and had so many conversations with my husband and ran so many numbers. And at the end of the day, it just didn't seem like I could give the dog the best possible experience in life. It would radically change my life because I love the freedom that I do have, and it would radically change my existence, and I like my existence just the way it is. So I chose myself at the end of the day and did not go get the dog. Oh, yeah. So that's what happened with Reese. So let's check in about the podcast studio, loft bed, and storage. So we are under construction. We hired the handy ladies to do this project for us, and it's something that I had thought about maybe at this point 7-8 months ago. And there's currently like a guest bed in my husband's office, and he has a smaller office, and we're really trying to get him some space. And my office, my studio space, has really, really, really high ceilings. As if like you could have 2 floors in that room. So we were like, oh, cool, let's just build a loft in this room, a way to get up to the loft. Can the way that you get up to the loft also be a podcast studio space that I can teach from and have like a recording area? And can it also be like storage so that it could have storage bins and drawers and stuff built into it? And the answer to all of that was yes, it can. And then my amazing and beloved sister gifted me the project by giving me a certain amount of money to be able to do the project with for my birthday last year. Amazing. Thank you, Sophie. So I was so lucky. I've got the resources, all of this. I've got the design, and now it was about finding someone to do this. And it's a major build. It's a little bit more than, we needed like a licensed contractor to do the work. It's a thing. Because we live in California, there's earthquakes. Like, I want it to be super duper safe and secure. So ultimately, we finally found the handy ladies. And the other thing that I wanted was, a lot of times out here in California, we have a lot of like Spanish speaking folks, which is freaking awesome. And simultaneously, I don't speak Spanish. And a big part of some issues that I've had with handy style construction situations in the past was a language barrier, and I didn't want a language barrier. I wanted to be able to have somebody to communicate with. So the handy ladies came into our life. They said yes to the project. We agreed on a budget, which was the amount of money that my sister had given me. And I made a lot of assumptions. So this was a major learning lesson for me. So just stepping back to fill in a teeny little bit of the blanks, I have victim consciousness around housing. It's something I've been working on for years now, about 14 years. And it is just living in California. There never seems like there's quite enough resources to make things happen. The places that we've been in, I helped a home have a major earthquake retrofit. I've worked with the city to get sewer lateral stuff. I have just been deeply involved in construction, housing stuff, just several new roofs over the years at different properties. I know about the housing, plumbers, all of this. And all of it comes with a little bit of trauma. None of it has ever been particularly easy. And there's a lot of things here about me just learning to assert myself, me learning how to work with people and be on a team, telling people exactly what I need and want. Not being afraid to ask questions. Like, these are all things that I have been learning over the years in terms of how to work with other humans on Earth. So the handy ladies come into our life. Hallelujah. Native English speakers. I make a ton of assumptions. They give designs. We know the date we're going to start. The date gets pushed back. The date gets pushed back again. And then they begin. And then they came and worked for a couple days. And then they went on vacation. And at this point, I had cleared, the room had to be absolutely cleared of all things in order to make this happen because it's a major build in the room. And this is my office. So I think we're on day like 50 something of me not having an office. And just many lessons were learned along the way. But here's the major takeaway. In the past, I would have been absolutely furious about lack of communication. I would have been angry. I wasn't. I was laughing about it because I'm like, oh my God, universe, I wanted good communicators. I wanted, and that's something that's very important to me. And here we are in a situation where, again, we're having some difficulty with communication. Well, when they finally came back to the house, I ended up having a sit down with the lead handy lady, and they discussed in person. So basically, I found out that texting isn't the best way to answer questions with them, because when we sat down in person, they laid everything out for me so that I understood it. I was able to ask questions. I had previously come up with all of these different lists of questions to ask, detective style, to be able to just know and understand the parameters of what we were looking at. The time that it was taking it's so much extended amounts of time. There was another conversation about costs and what is this going to cost? What is this all going to look like? There was some difficulty and some miscommunication about materials and the material costs, and the material costs were a lot more expensive than we necessarily originally thought. So all of that was able to be discussed in person, and it went really, really well. And up to that point, I was getting a little bit concerned. I was feeling myself getting nervous around it, but I basically, again, we're using that detective framework, sat down in meditation, really made a comprehensive list, looked things up on the internet to be able to understand exactly what I was asking. Did a little searching around to see pricing and understand what pricing was, and sort of just broke it down. And what we ended up coming up with in order to keep the project within our budget is I am going to do half of the job myself. So if you don't know this about me, I'm pretty handy. I, especially when it comes to things like painting or caulking or sort of finishing touch type stuff, making things aesthetically look good, I'm pretty good at that. Basic sanding, all of that. What I'm not good at is structural integrity building, chop saw use and tools, major tool use and stuff like that. That is not, I don't know how to do that stuff. I'm not saying I couldn't learn. I'm pretty good at a jigsaw, but those are from my warehouse days working in event planning. But for the most part, it's been around me peripherally. There was a builder at my old job, and I would paint the props when he was done building the props. So basically, we decided originally when we hired them, they were going to take us through the entire project. But timing wise, it would be months and months and months in the future for that to be able to happen. Because of the price that they quoted us, basically the ladies can come work in their free time. So they both have, jobs that are paying more, so they'd take those first and then they come and do this when they have time. And that means that we're talking about like a day or an evening, that kind of thing. So I was like, yes, absolutely. In order to get this done in a timely fashion, I am absolutely happy to take on some of this work. So I agreed to a fair amount of things that I am now watching YouTube videos to learn how to do, like drywalling. So you're actually catching me right now. We're recording this podcast between some drywall drying. So I have now learned the art of mixing Easy Sand 45 and attaching corners, covering screws. Right now I've been in the process of filling in all of the gaps of the podcast studio. Yesterday I learned to cut drywall from YouTube, and then I went and got some drywall and I cut it. And I used drywall screws of the appropriate length and screwed them on the wall. Oh, you guys. So yes, attaching the drywall to the booth and then mudding. And when I'm done recording this episode, I'm going to go hopefully do my first sanding and then apply my first coat of, I believe it's called joint compound, but like when you're just sort of like skimming the walls. And I've got my little tools that I bought. Again, thank you YouTube videos for showing me how to do this. So I have my little hawk and I have my little 4-inch application. What is it, like this little trowel thing? And then I have this other thing that's long that I'm going to get to use to like put the plaster all over the walls or the joint compound. Yeah, so learning, growing. Through this process, I've noticed a few different things. There are times when I've been very angry, and that anger rises because I'm like, why is this happening? This is not what I agreed to. Why can't this be easier? And then I have to take some breaths because this is life, right? These are these pressure points. When we get these pressure points, it is an invitation for us to step up to the plate and learn something new. And when we are first learning something new for the first time, it's never easy. There is always a learning curve. So like yesterday was my first day using the sheetrock Easy Sand 45. And the first batch that I made was complete and total dog shit. Like the bottom of it was crunchy. And so I noticed the bottom of it was crunchy because you're using like a drill with a bit on the end in order to like stir this stuff up. So I was like, okay, let me learn from this because I'm doing small batches because it dries hard within 45 minutes and like I'm not fast enough yet to like mix up this entire bag and use it. It's not going to happen. So I've been doing small batches of it. So I learned from the first time, let me add a little bit of water to the bottom of my bucket as I put in the Easy Sand. And then that's going to help to catch that bottom stuff to be able to like help mix it in. So by the sixth batch of Easy Sand that I was mixing up, I got good at it. And then the 7th and the 8th were like perfect right off the top. I know how to mix a small batch of Easy Sand 45. So everything just takes practice and it takes patience, and we have to remember these learning curves in our lives, right? But sometimes the product yesterday was like drying on me, and I was trying to attach a piece of tape, this like paper tape to the corner while it was like, but the product was no longer correct. It was drying on me and it was no longer working. And I was trying to force it to work because God damn it, it was gonna happen. Like just so pushing and frustrated and slopping this stuff on the wall. And then I had to take a breath, slow down, stop, walk away for a minute, scrape off what I did, go wash off all my tools, and start again. It reminds me, on my door, I've wrote this on a piece of paper and it's taped outside of the front of my door. And it says, "We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love." And throughout this entire process, I've been doing a lot of self-forgiveness and beginning again in love. So I scraped down the corner and I started again. Went out, washed everything off, did some deep breathing, went back and did it again. And this is strenuous work. My muscles hurt. I went to Zumba this morning and I wasn't my normal hippity-hoppity Zumba self. My muscles are sore from holding the stupid hawk thing and messing around with heavy joint compound, the little trowel. So, but is it a positive experience? It is. Have I also found myself being annoyed occasionally throughout because there's a total learning curve and I often feel incredibly lonely and like I'm doing this alone in a void? That too. I have found for myself that when I'm doing new things or little projects like this, I'll just turn my phone on and I make little videos because it helps remind me that I'm a badass and that I can do this. And I will make these videos for myself because it's just like, look at you, girl. Look at you go. You didn't know how to use this. You didn't know how to mix Easy 45 when you woke up this morning, and now you do. By the end of the day, you can mix it well. And because of the way that being completely in the present moment is, I like to make the little videos because it reminds me that I did it. And if I continue to do things like this or never do it again, I have a little record of the fact that I did do it. It's like a diary because I forget. And that's another really awesome thing about this podcast. Because when we move through things and heal and change and they integrate, the hardship passes and it's like it wasn't there. And it's really hard to remember. And that's a good thing, right? Because we just keep moving forward. But it's kind of fun to remember where one came from. And I enjoy making this podcast because I think of myself when I was 12 years old and I didn't have any hope. And I was 12 years old and I didn't want to be here. I was thinking about suicide. And I think, look at me now at 45. I'm learning a new skill from watching YouTube videos. And now I know how to cut and apply drywall. Yeah. And I'm proud of myself for that. I didn't know how to do that the day before. And it doesn't mean that it wasn't scary along the way. And I definitely cried. Not like a major cry, but like I had some tears along the way because I was like, this is hard and it's not working. And just keep trying. And eventually it did. Other things that are going on in my world is I have had an inkling that, so when I started my spiritual business, I thought it would take off in a way that it never has. But I've learned so much, but it isn't something that is necessarily bringing in any kind of real helpful revenue. It pays its LLC fees for itself. It takes care of, to run a business, you pay for a whole bunch of different programs and the website and Canva and stuff like that, Zoom. So it takes care of paying for itself, but I have not yet in my year and 4 or 5 months of business been able to contribute to the home. And I'm hoping that at some point I have amassed the amount of students it required to actually make something like this viable. But, it's still early days and I'm still, learning and growing. And something I need to learn about is business, marketing, and sales. These are things I don't know anything about. I'm a freaking visual artist, right? When I worked for my sister all those years at the event planning company, the work would come to me. The work was brought to me and I got told what work I was going to get to do. I didn't have to go out there and hunt down the work. And it's funny because when I originally started this business, I'm under the impression that my light will just shine and the people will come to me. The people, that are meant to work with me will come to me and we'll form community and it'll just all work out. It'll all take care of each other. And it's a slower road than I had originally anticipated. Anyway, all of this to say, now part of my routine is I'm actually looking for some part-time work to just take the pressure off because I don't want to make that kind of demand on my business. Because working as an energy healer, it is my job to stay in joy. It is my job to get my body to be a clean channel. And if I'm stressing out because there aren't people in my inbox to help me create wealth at this moment in time, it'd be good if I just went and got a part-time job so that I knew that was taken care of and then I can just continue to bring joy to the students that I have in my program, Return to Self-Love, and also sometimes when people book a private session. So yeah, I'm really open to, the best case scenario would be I'd have 5 mentorship students and Bob's your uncle. That would be amazing. And that's all I need. But yeah, we're still waiting. And I think part of it is also just building a reputation, which is why I'm hanging out with you. And if you're listening to me, maybe maybe you'll come and work with me in the future. Maybe you're a light worker and we can do some work together in the world. So my whole jam is that I want to teach people to do this stuff for themselves. I want people to be able to learn to trust themselves. I want to help pull away the layers, decondition away from all of the things that you were taught. Get rid of all those limiting beliefs so that you can walk towards the dream life that you want to live. And maybe all of this is just about me saying yes and learning all of this stuff for myself and sharing, and maybe that's all it is. Something I do in my private life is I walk around anchoring light into the land. A big part of what I do is grid work, and that isn't for money. It's just something I do because that's between me and God and the land. Maybe that's why I'm here. Maybe that's what I'm up to. All of the things that I'm doing, if I never did another thing, they're all enough. There's a distortion in the era that I grew up in and in one of the teachers that I've had that I learned from. There's this distortion around when you're absolutely in alignment, then everything pops off and all of a sudden you have all this financial abundance. And one would say that I have not mastered manifestation or welcoming that into my life in such a fashion yet because it hasn't happened. However, it also totally has because everything is taken care of. Everything always falls into place. It's there isn't overflowing amounts of literal piles of money, but everything fell into place with this podcast studio that I'm having this incredible project built in my house, and it's completely within what we can afford, and it is way more than, especially because I'm doing a lot of this work myself, it is going to be absolutely gorgeous, way better than anything that I could have imagined. It's super great. It's amazing. It's going to be this high quality, amazing thing. I have to put the labor into actually doing the thing, but the resources and the wealth in order to get the supplies necessary to put the labor in to do the thing are there, right? So these are good things. It's all working, but it doesn't look like magic. It looks like showing up and putting the hours in. It looks like dedication. It looks like hard earned labor stuff. And it's interesting because a lot of these manifestation teachers are just like, oh, it's so easy. And if that's ever true, I'll tell you. You'll be the first to know, my love, I swear. I will tell you right away. If any of this ever falls into place really easily, I'll tell you immediately. All right, so that's our little check in for what's going on. And I would also share I am looking for some folks to come on the podcast on Fridays with me to ask Elizabeth questions. I think that would be a fun way. So if you want to come on the podcast, if you want to meet me, if you want to channel with Elizabeth, you are welcome to. Reach out to me at Freda Miletsky Healing Arts at gmail.com, and I'll have that for you in the show notes. Reach out, and you can come on a Friday podcast and you can ask Elizabeth some questions. I think that would be fun. Because I've just been asking her a question and then doing the channeling, but I think it would be really neat for people, and it works really, really well when there's another person and then the person is asking the questions and I don't want to know what they are. And then I can just drop out and she's just answering questions using my voice. And that is the bomb. That is the way that I prefer to do it. So reach out to me. And we will find a time for you to come on the show and we will record an episode together. Friends, if you would like to be part of my morning meditation community, we meet on Tuesday mornings from 6 to 7 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to be there in person because I send the recording right after class. However, you do need to want to learn a spiritual practice and be ready for some dedicated work. This is for folks who would love to have some groundwork of how you can build a spiritual practice for yourself. And we have a really beautiful community of folks in that room, and it's a neat class to be in. I will be running another batch of frequency courses, but I got to be honest with you. At the beginning of May here, I'm still integrating the class from February. So as soon as I get the high sign to go with this, I will. But right now, it's not quite there yet. But if you want to come to Frequency, reach out to me and tell me so that I can help you get on a waiting list, and it would help inform me. I have a tendency to teach in the mornings because I enjoy the mornings, but if folks need a nighttime program, then I can reassess and we'll see what that means. And I will be open to it because I want to serve community, and if the community needs to do this after work at night, I can show up for that. We'll see. I love you. God, Universe, Source loves you. And I hope that you have a wonderful day.